And coming up on the wrap, it's official. Rand Paul is running for president, but is he electable? A new poll on immigration finds Americans aren't too thrilled on the president's executive action legalizing millions of illegal immigrants. And did Hillary Clinton put Americans at risk with her private email servers? One member of the Obama administration thinks so. We'll discuss all of that, plus yay or nay, potluck. This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV. And welcome to the show, everybody, from New York City. Joining me, as usual, is Forbes.com columnist, SiriusXM host, and the co-founder of the Church of Scientology. I always thought that was just Hubbard's deal, but you were the man behind the man.
I read L. Ron Hubbard every night before I go to bed.
Good for you.
Yeah,
He looks
I
like Tom
space
Cruise.
stories.
And
I like space stories.
John Travolta.
also, she's the legal hybrid of Jeffrey Toobin and Gloria Allred. If we're
Oh, I
talking
don't
about
like
the,
that.
if we're talking about the exact opposite, Rick, which is a good
okay.
thing.
Much better looking than Tubin.
Of course, lawyer and poignant pundit Heather Hansen joins us. And finally, he's the president of Scheinkoff Communications, which is good because his last name is, in fact, Scheinkoff. Hank Scheinkoff is here. So let's go to the Daily Download.
From the time I was a very young boy, I was taught to love and appreciate America. I announce, with God's help, with the help of liberty lovers everywhere, that I am putting myself forward as a candidate for President of the United States of America.
As expected, Rand Paul, who likes red ties the way Netanyahu likes blue ties, announced today that he is running for president. A campaign video featuring his wife Kelly accompanied the announcement that he also made on his website, randpaul.com. Surprised that wasn't taken.
Rand has the energy, the ideas, the honesty to really help restore the prosperity and hope in our country. He loves making a difference as a doctor, and he believes that he can make a difference as the president.
So, how is Mr. Paul looking in the polls? Well, according to the latest one from Fox News, he's about where you'd expect, somewhere in the middle of the pack. As you can see, Scott Walker still leading at 15%. Ben Carson somehow gets 11. Mike Huckabee somehow gets 10. And there is Mr. Paul around 9%. Wow, look at that. John Kasich bringing up 1% of the vote. You all laugh now. I'll be laughing in November of 2016.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Anyway, Senator Paul is just the second Politico to jump into the presidential pool behind Senator Ted Cruz. Does Rand have what it takes to be president is the question. Will he reshape the GOP? Can he raise the money? Well, we're joined now by C. Edmund Wright. He's a writer for Breitbart and the American Thinker and author of the Amazon bestseller WTF, How Karl Rove and the Establishment Lost Again. Edmund, my first question is for the viewers at home who aren't familiar with acronyms. Does WTF stand for what the freak or why the face? Take it away.
Well, you know, we like to give the reader a little discretion, give them a wide berth here.
All right. You handled that well.
It sort of depends on whether I'm talking to a Rick Santorum audience or you know, maybe a little bit rougher crowd, but we'll just say it's why they failed and leave it at that.
Well done. You thought of that one on your feet. Excellent. So your thoughts on Mr. Paul? We always knew it was going to happen. Now it's official. He's running. Can he win? Is the money there? Your 30,000-foot overview of this right now.
Well, my first view is that Fox News poll is an outlier with all the other polls. I mean, there's a lot of other polls out there that sort of show a Jeb Bush, Scott Walker, Ted Cruz trifecta near the top at, you know, give or take a few points. Obviously, I think Paul is going to get a little bit of a bump out of the announcement. I don't think he'll get the bump that Senator Cruz got. You know, I think Rand Paul has a lot of problems with the Republican base. He's had a couple of years of kind of going all over the place and saying that Thad Cochran's campaign was a good outreach and, you know, claiming the fact that 400 kids at Berkeley liked him means he can, you know, win California, stuff like that. I don't really see him ultimately going much past the Ron Paul, Rand Paul base.
Edmund, it's Rick Unger. You know, one of the rare occasions where you and I agree. I think you just put it perfectly. I don't see him going much past that base either. He could probably get a little further than his father, but that's probably about it. My question is this, though. If you look back over the history of Rand Paul since we first got to know him, it seemed like his base, if you will, was the capital L libertarians that had kind of merged with the Tea Party. Now we see the Tea Party really moving in the direction, I think, of Senator Cruz. Is it Senator Cruz who's going to do in Rand Paul, or is it the more traditional Republicans, or both?
I think a little bit of both. You know, I thought Rand Paul's speech today was outstanding.
I did too, by the way.
Yeah, I can't divorce that from some of the piles he stepped in the last 2 years. You know, but yeah, I think I think a lot of folks that used to like Rand now kind of like Cruz. I think they're upset at Rand Paul for not supporting Cruz's filibuster the way Cruz supported Rand Paul's filibuster. So I think he's got a lot of problems with the base, and he obviously has some problems with the establishment.
C. Edmund Wright, Breitbart, American thinker, and the author of a great book with a great acronym. Thanks very much for joining us from the national champion state of North Carolina and Duke University.
It is. Go Blue Devils.
No, good grief. Anyway.
Cost me money.
So let's go around the table, to go from Duke to Kentucky. So Heather Hansen, because Rick already has his thoughts as far as how far Mr. Paul will go. Do you have a contrarian view?
No, I think he's going to have a lot of issues. You know, there was a good article in Politico today about his father's role in his campaign, and it's really interesting this election. You'll see Jeb Bush dealing with his brother and his father's legacies, Hillary dealing with her husband's, and now yet another person dealing with a familial legacy. And I think that it's going to be difficult for him to embrace some of his father's ideas and yet step away from others. And you see he's already having some trouble doing that and just not commenting on some of the bigger issues of the day. When he has to comment, I think he may have some problems.
Hank, only about 30 seconds, but your thoughts on the
I think
Paul
he should
campaign.
save his money and buy a house.
He's probably already got one.
Hey, buy
house.
another house, because this is not going to work out well. No, there is a portion of the country geographically, less than ideologically, but geographically he will find comfort in, but it's not enough to get the nomination. And the question is what this does to the Republican Party afterwards.
Rick, from an entertainment perspective, political entertainment, at least, he isn't afraid to do interviews with anybody, anywhere, anytime.
right.
And that's what's impressed about me. So I think at least, we only have about 10 seconds, that's something where while he's in it, he's going to make things interesting.
I agree with that, and he's appealing, because I can tell you, for every 2 articles I write that are bad, I write one that's good.
Boom. And coming up next, a new poll on attitudes towards immigration. It might surprise you. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the show. I'm Joe Concha, joined by Rick Unger, Heather Hansen, and Hank Schenkoff. When President Obama made this announcement back in November, the response was less than favorable.
There are actions I have the legal authority to take as president, the same kinds of actions taken by Democratic and Republican presidents before me, that will help make our immigration system more fair and more just. Tonight, I'm announcing those actions.
So instead of working with Congress to come up with a bipartisan solution on immigration, the president used executive action to create an amnesty program to legalize millions of illegal aliens. Well, today, a new Rasmussen poll reveals exactly what Americans are thinking about immigration, and the results are not likely to please this White House. Let's show it. Rasmussen finds that 62% believe the government is not aggressive enough in deporting illegal immigrants. 51%, more than half, do not believe illegal immigrants who have American-born children should be exempt from deportation. That number is up considerably from last November, when only 42% disagreed with deportation exemption. And get this, more than half, 54%, continue to feel that a child born to an illegal immigrant mother in the United States should not automatically become a U.S. citizen, which is currently the case. And finally, a whopping 83% think people should be required to prove they are legally allowed in the United States before receiving local, state, and federal government services. Overall, the poll obviously showing Americans are getting more angry about illegal immigration. And here in New York, there is an effort to make it legal for illegal aliens to vote in local elections. So now, joining us via Skype is Ira Melman. He is the media director for the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Ira, welcome to the show. Appreciate it. These numbers certainly show Americans not becoming more accepting of the president's plan. I was actually surprised the numbers were as high as they were.
It shouldn't be surprising. You know, a lot of the other polls ask questions in a way that are designed to elicit the answers that they want. But quite frankly, the American public understands the impact of mass illegal immigration on the United States, and they're fed up with it. Whether the president cares what the American public thinks is another question. Clearly, he doesn't. He doesn't care even what the Constitution says are the limits of his power. So he's going to move ahead, and it's now up to Congress to stop him.
Yeah, and I should clarify what I had said right before I asked you the question. It seems the media narrative is that, well, what are you going to do, deport them? And it just seems like every politician, I don't know one that's running for president that would actually come forward on a platform saying we should start deporting illegals and particularly children. And I think the 2016 election, everybody's going to talk about it, but in terms of this topic, but I don't think anybody's going to have really the gumption to do what many Americans in this poll say should be done.
Well, first of all, mass deportation is a straw man argument. The choices aren't between mass amnesty and mass deportation. It's between mass amnesty and sensible enforcement of our immigration laws. We have mass illegal immigration because this administration in particular, but also previous administrations, made it clear that if you came here illegally, you'd be able to get a job, you'd be able to get access to benefits and services. We wouldn't be enforcing the law too vigorously. Under this administration, they're not enforcing the law at all. But what we need to do is rely on the fact that illegal immigrants make rational choices. They came here for rational reasons. If we enforce our laws in a sensible way, the same way that the IRS, for instance, enforces the law, people will choose to voluntarily comply. That's been poo-pooed as self-deportation, but it actually works. We saw it during the recession when the jobs dried up. The number of illegal aliens living in the United States declined. We can effectively create that situation by simply enforcing our laws in a very logical way.
I read Rick Unger. I noticed that you pointed out, and I understand your point of view on this, that the president ignored the Constitution by using his executive order. Fine. I wonder, though, why you and the 50-some% of Americans who don't believe that children born in this country from illegal mothers, that they don't care about the Constitution. The Constitution makes it completely, unarguably clear that if you're born in this country, you're a citizen of this country, and yet you're not willing to back that up, it seems.
No, it actually doesn't make that clear. The 14th Amendment stipulates that you have to be within the jurisdiction of the United States, not territorial jurisdiction, but within the legal
what
jurisdiction
if you're born
of
in
the United
Texas?
States. If you go back, you read what the framers said at the time. Back in the 1860s, they were very clear that this was an amendment to grant citizenship to the emancipated slaves after the Civil War.
Wait, excuse me, I've got to follow that up. What do you mean territorial? If an illegal mother's in Chicago and has a child, those 54% say that kid shouldn't be an American. You say that, and yet that's not a territorial issue. They're born in Illinois.
No, first of all, not every child who's born in the United States is automatically a citizen. The children born to foreign diplomats are not U.S. citizens.
I'm sorry, Ira, you got to do better than that, man. Seriously. Let's not talk about foreign diplomats. We're talking about somebody who crossed the border illegally. That's what that poll's about.
If you were in the United States, you have to stop at the red lights like the rest of us. But you are not under the same kind of jurisdiction of the United States that the rest of us are. And that is the legal distinction. And it's not just me saying that. There are constitutional scholars who say very clearly that the jurisdiction means that you have to be under the complete jurisdiction of the United States, that even when you leave the United States, you still maintain the jurisdiction of the United States.
Ira, I'm going to have Heather Hansen take the baton from you and continue this debate with Mr. Unger. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. So Heather has been chomping at the bit to jump in here, so go ahead.
But there is an argument that is often made, and in fact in 1993, Harry Reid put forth some legislation to say that the part of the 14th Amendment where it says under the jurisdiction of the United States does not include those people who are illegally born here. And they go back to
They're not
the
illegal.
intention.
Wait. How can you be illegally
born here to an illegal mother?
It does not say that in the Constitution.
But Rick, listen. All I'm telling you is
you
that
don't
there
agree with
is.
that. Admit it.
I think it's a stretch.
Yeah.
I think it's a
Thank
stretch,
you.
and I think
and
you
yet
would need a
Ira was
constitutional
trying to make
amendment.
some argument that was insane.
Hank, jump in.
The politics here are very different. People don't like the fact that the president did what he did.
I don't
That's
care.
part of
We're
what's
talking
driving
about the
this.
Constitution.
Hold on. I'm not talking about the Constitution. I'm talking about the president of the United States. That he usurped the power of the people. He does it constantly. That's his way of operating. If he says it, yes. If not, it's his way, the highway, or no way. Period. End of discussion.
That's not
That's
the
what
issue.
and they're responding to also to the increased economic gap between the rich and the poor in this country, and they're very worried about it. Whenever you have these kinds of numbers, and if you look at the history of the United States and its politics, when you've had these kind of explosions about immigrants, they often have to do with economic conditions at the time.
Well, but it's that, and to talk about the issue that you're getting to, it's the things that are in the news. Just a month ago, the feds did a sting on these birth hotels where people from China are coming here just to have children
I understand.
here. So there is.
But you're
listen,
both off the point. Wait, let me say something. Look, I understand that you're cutting them a break. That's nice. I understand what's going on. That's not what we would like to see happening.
no, I'm not cutting
But
them a break,
excuse me,
no.
we have a Constitution, and the very people who stand up and say don't ever vary from the Constitution are precisely the people who want to ignore it for the reasons you're both pointing out.
Guess what? We'll be talking about this sometime this week again, I can guarantee you as a show host. Coming up next, Hillary Clinton put Americans at risk by keeping her emails on a private server. One top intelligence officer of the Obama administration says, yes, that's a problem. This is the Daily Wrap. And welcome back to the show. Well, here's a topic we haven't talked in about, 24 hours or so on this network and this program for that matter. Hillary Clinton's emails. But there's a good reason for broaching the topic today, as a top intelligence official under President Obama, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, telling Fox News' Megyn Kelly last night that the chances Clinton's private emails were hacked are, quote, very high.
What do you think the odds are that the Chinese, the Russians, hacked into that server and her email account?
Very high. Likely.
Really?
Yep, likely. They're very good at it. Those two countries, China, Russia, Iran, potentially the North Koreans. I mean, these are countries, and other countries who may be, quote unquote, our allies because they can.
Mr. Flynn also saying someone at that level of government should assume that everything she touches belongs to the government. Nothing is personal. And that was more convenient for her, should not have come before the safety and welfare of others. Even Mrs. Clinton admitted to that back in March.
Again, looking back, it would have been better for me to use 2 separate phones and 2 email accounts. I thought using one device would be simpler, and obviously it hasn't worked out that way.
And about a week after that press conference, a CNN ORC poll found that 51% of those polled said Mrs. Clinton's use of personal email system instead of government provided one to be very or somewhat serious problem, and 51% at that point, or at the point, she had not done enough to explain why she used this private email system during her time as Secretary of State. We keep bringing this up and discussing what impact this email scandal will have on Hillary's chances of running in 2016, or winning for that matter. But now a top intelligence official in the Obama administration has come out and said those emails being hacked are very high, the chances of. Does this change anything, Mr. Hank?
Oh, no, this will put people to sleep. The Republicans will talk about this during the campaign, and everybody will need no-dose tablets to stay awake because it's just terrible. It's dumb. It's not going to work.
Don't you think some Democrats are worried, though, as well? It seems like Martin O'Malley, since the email scandal, seemed to really ramp up his campaign, seeing an opening.
Martin O'Malley should worry about being remembered. People meet him, they say, nice guy. Who was his name? Irving Schwartz? I mean, no one remembers that guy. He's like the wind. They came in and they left. Wind is gone. Nice wind. Thank
Empty
you.
suit.
Well, you know what I think this whole idea of the hacking has really brought to light is the problem we have with cybersecurity. We've talked so much for the past month about the nuclear issues with Iran and what we have to worry about. And now we know that, some people think for sure that Hillary Clinton's emails were hacked. We know that the White House, the State Department, we found out today, Russia hacked into there. And yet we don't talk about how to prevent that. This is a major issue. When the lights went out in Washington, D.C. today for a while, there was a question as to whether or not that was terrorism. That can happen as a result of cyber terror.
It can. It happened in Die Hard 4.
Right, and who knows? And there's many things that happen in the Die Hard movies that happen in real life.
Before you jump in.
Yeah.
All right, allow the moderator to ask you a question.
Go for
I
it.
know what you're going to say. You will go and you'll look to the camera and you will say, it's not going to matter.
No, I'm not.
This
I'm
means
not going to
nothing."
pull the camera on this
Okay,
one.
good. I want to talk about the political aspect
Yes.
of this, all right? And not what you think. It's funny that a member of the Obama administration goes on national TV and says, oh, those absolutely could have been hacked, given that there seems to be a rivalry still between the Obamas and the Clintons. Everything seems calculated.
Maybe.
Nothing happens by accident.
It's an ex-member of the Obama administration, and frankly, not somebody who was on the inner circle, not even in the universe of the inner circle.
General.
So what? He's a military guy. We don't know other military guys while Obama was president who don't agree with him.
Still, he knows going on
let me
national
tell you,
television that people like us will be talking
he
about.
got on Fox. You know, let's talk about what I think is much more interesting is what Heather alluded to. Today we learned that the White House, and did you say also the State Department?
It was the State Department. That's how
The
they got in.
State Department,
That's
where
how they got in.
Hillary's emails were supposed to be, and it's a great big disaster she didn't put them there. Well, guess what? Those emails were hacked by the Russians.
Are you saying the
So
server that
what's
was in
the
her
difference?
outhouse, what difference does it make? Were you going to
They
say
were
it?
going to hack her anyhow if she was in the State Department. That's how ridiculous this. Heather's right. What we ought to be focusing on is how this can happen and how we stop it. Instead, it's much more fun for Hillary's opponents to make a big fuss out of the fact that she could have been hacked when now we know that the State Department was hacked and they would have seen her emails that way.
Hank, you're nodding in disagreement.
Okay, so now that we've excused Hillary because she was able to see into the future,
Right.
She had this extraordinary ability. There's this time warp.
I've
that she
never
can,
excused
oh,
her.
excuse me. We can look into she can see everything. Only she can see it. Look, the real issue is she got hacked, and anybody in high position in this government or any government in the world can be hacked and their information taken. But it's especially awful when you are the most important superpower in the world.
But
Well, and
the
when you
State
take-
Department was hacked.
But the thing is, Rick, she was willing to take that risk to protect herself, and that is a problem. And it goes to the same thing we've talked about over and over again: arrogance, hypocrisy,
Right, but
contempt
don't miss
for the rules.
my point. I have not defended Hillary ever about this. I think she was wrong. But you have to acknowledge that had she done it all the way correctly, it sounds like she would have gotten hacked anyhow, that they would have gotten her stuff anyhow.
If I had paid my taxes correctly the first time, I wouldn't be paying the interest. I got it. What a deal.
It's still breaking the rules still makes a difference, whether or not it would have been the same
She
result.
didn't break the rules.
She did.
No, we've been through this. The law. She did not break the law.
The rules. She broke the rules.
And on that note, I'm almost speechless. We'll leave it there. Up next, it's potluck time, thankfully. This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's potluck time. It's a part of the show where we go around the table and share some stories that really grabbed us when we were reading over breakfast, lunch, even 40 minutes before the show. Heather, what do you have?
I have a story that is not fun and happy, but it is definitely provocative and sad and interesting. There's a gentleman in Iowa who's on trial right now for raping his wife. He and his wife were widowed. They met and married when they were in their 70s, and by all accounts had a wonderful, happy, loving marriage. And then about 6 years into their marriage, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and put into a home over his objections by her children. And once in the home, the nursing home administrators came to the conclusion that because of her dementia, she could no longer consent to having sex with her husband, despite the fact that she never sort of objected to it or raised any issue with it. And apparently her husband did have sex with her, and now he is on trial for rape. And this is a terribly sad situation. It opens up a whole new world of potential rape charges. It is the first time that I could find that a person with dementia and their ability to consent has been questioned or brought to the courts. And, I spend a lot of my time defending doctors and defending nursing homes. It brings into mind all kinds of issues with defending nursing homes. Should they be in the position to say whether or not a person can consent to having relations with their husband or wife? Should the states be getting involved in these types of things when it comes to these issues? We have an aging population, and couples are going to be dealing with this as time goes on. And I think that it is something that everyone who has anybody who's older in their family or who is involved in the law should be keeping an eye on this case, because if this older man is found guilty of this felony and has to spend time in jail for having loving relations with his wife, it's going to be a scary thing.
Two questions. Your gut, will he be found innocent or guilty? And the second one is, if you were judge and jury, what would you find him as?
Both I think that he will be found innocent, and I think he should be found innocent. I think that there's a lot of things at play here. There's a lot of familial issues with the children. There's a lot of issues with the nursing home and the way that the determination that she couldn't consent was made. I think that the nursing home was probably covering their butt because they're sued often for different issues, and so they want to make sure that they're covered. But I do think that we've got to find a way to make sure that this doesn't happen. There's got to be a better understanding within families and within nursing homes of what people with dementia are able to consent to, because to put a family through this and to put he was arrested within a month at the time that his wife died. It's a terrible story, and it really opens your eyes to the potential problems that you can see in these situations, and I don't even know where to begin to head off these issues.
Awful. Gentlemen, anything?
Great. I mean, it's a terrible story to have to discuss, but I'm glad Heather did. And I agree with every word she said. This is a can of worms that should never have been opened.
Hank?
Overwhelmingly awful for people. This man is 78 years old to go through this at this point in life. Absolutely no intent to commit a crime. I mean, clearly there's something wrong. When familial issues become criminal charges, there's something wrong with the system we're cherishing.
Well, let's hope Heather's gut is right on both counts. Yeah. Rick?
So, who I now call the Reverend Senator Ted Cruz, and I do that, and before people send in emails and whatever criticizing me for having some problem with Christianity, I don't. I have nothing but respect for Christianity, but I do prefer getting my spiritual advice from my spiritual advisor and not from my presidential candidates. The Reverend Senator this week in a speech suggested that if the Supreme Court were to rule later this summer that gay marriage should be available now in all 50 states, which is a distinct possibility, that the response should be that Congress should take away from the Supreme Court the authority to issue any rulings when it comes to this area. Now, as Heather's going to tell you, it's likely legal what he's suggesting. There is precedent on this. The founders did give the Congress the right to regulate, or was it the 14th Amendment that did that, actually? So he may be able to do that, in fact. Congress may be able to do it. But I find myself quoting somebody who you wouldn't think I'd ever be quoting, Senator Barry Goldwater, who is, let's face it, the gold standard when it comes to right-wing politicians. When Jesse Helms, if any of you remember him, wanted to do the same thing about school prayer, this is what Senator Barry Goldwater said. He said it would be akin to outlawing the Supreme Court. He had it right. What Ted Cruz is talking about doing is profoundly and fundamentally wrong. Let's not let that happen.
I don't disagree with you about taking it away from the Supreme Court. I don't. And I am for gay marriage, so let's put that out there. But there is an argument, and in fact, groups have filed friend of the court briefs on this, that the Supreme Court is not meant to have jurisdiction over marriage. That it is all courts in law and equity, and there's a separate court, an ecclesiastical court, that is separate for marriage.
In the Constitution?
Yeah, well, in the Constitution. And
I don't remember the word ecclesiastical.
Article 3 only talks about all courts in law and equity. And as a matter of history, there was a separate court for marriage.
Okay.
And the cases that have covered marriage, like U.S. versus Windsor, which is the gay marriage case we saw recently, had to do with federal taxes and federal benefits. So that's a federal question. The case of Loving versus Virginia is another case that was criminal. So there's an argument there.
Interesting.
Interesting indeed. When we take a quick break, we come back with more potluck. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. I'm your host, Joe Concha. They were actually applauding in here before. That was that hand you saw come across your screen. If you're just joining us.
Go, Joe!
Yes. We're in the middle of our smoky potluck where we're sharing our favorite stories of the day. Hank, you have a culinary masterpiece for us.
Yeah, right. No, listen, I'm always looking for heroes in the news or people who've done extraordinary things, and particularly when they pass. So in this case, a labor leader from Chicago to New York, someone who had major impact on this country, a fellow named Victor Gottbaum. Why is he interesting? Yes, he was a labor leader, and yeah, he fought very hard for the people he represented, and yeah, he set the standard for representing public sector workers. But when New York City went into fiscal meltdown in 1975, Victor Gottbaum had the courage to commit union pension funds. That was his decision to buy bonds to bail out the city, which became the model for workouts for municipalities around the country. Okay, I think an extraordinary act of bravery, tremendously going beyond oneself. I'm always amazed by the things people do that they don't have to do. Here's a clear case. And that when they get rewarded for it is one thing, but most people who do the things they don't have to do don't get rewarded. And nor did he. So he died this past Sunday, I think. And he set the standard for doing what was right for the people he represented and doing what was right for society at large.
I'm so glad that you brought him up as your potluck because I did not know who he was, to be honest. And I researched it, and this is why I love doing this because I learned so much.
Yep.
But one of the things that I noted is, you guys have often talked about how unions used to be and how they should be,
Sure.
and he's the epitome of that, really.
I knew Victor, and he was Victor Gottbaum was an extraordinary person, very well read, very smart. I always admire people again who do what they're supposed to do, and they go beyond that point. Victor Gottbaum didn't have to be a tough guy; could have collected the check, went out and represented his people. But when push came to shove and people got into trouble in the city, so again, this was the standard for workouts. Municipalities have followed this since 1975. He stood up, took the money of his own workers, and took the gamble. And the result was the most successful municipal bailout, the only one of its kind in history.
Rick?
I'm really glad you brought him up. I mean, I have often used Victor Gottbaum as an example of what a union leader should be. He's a hero. I was a very big fan, and we'll raise a cup to his memory.
He was quite something, and as a model for leaders, regardless of whether they're Republican or Democrat.
That's right.
That standard of doing what is right because it is the right thing to do ought to be the one we follow.
Principle is not convenient with Victor, it appears.
Right.
And thanks for bringing that up as well. I learned a lot
you.
in reading about that. Had not heard of him, to be honest with you, but maybe it's a generational thing. Speaking of death, unfortunately, I'm going to talk about something different, the death of golf. You're saying this is Newsmax. We don't talk about sports on here. Well, I think this is more of a cultural kind of thing. I want to share some numbers with you first. Last year's Masters, when the Masters starts in 2 days, lowest ratings since 1957. The U.S. Open, its ratings last year were down 46% from the year before, but this is what's most interesting. Golf courses, more closed than open last year. How many more? Well, 14 opened and 157 closed. Now, why is all this happening? And you're seeing the cover of Golf Digest, by the way. Where did that come from?
It's happening.
Right. Well, look, I think when Golf Digest starts resorting to topless women on covers, I understand she's doing
Looks
that.
better than Madras pants, I'll tell you that.
Well,
I mean,
that's a very good point. I mean, you could put somebody like Rory McIlroy on that cover, and maybe it won't sell as many as Lexi being on the cover. But I think that Golf Digest cover really shows how desperate golf is right now. Pay attention to us, because young people are not picking up golf clubs and taking up this sport. It is a dying sport. It's for the old and it's for the rich. Well,
I'm playing this weekend with my boyfriend's 7-year-old son, and we're going to get him started on it. I think it's slow. It's a slow sport, and that's the problem. I know that they've tried to speed it up with like things you can ride while you play and all types of different things. But I do think that there is a group of people who will always enjoy it, young and old.
And I am willing to go double or nothing on my basketball losses of yesterday, that the Masters ratings will be up significantly this week as we wait to see if Tiger got a short game back and if Rory McIlroy can complete the Grand Slam.
in a political season, there are people going to hope that people do get lost in the rough, that they disappear in sand traps. There's all kinds of things that can happen here. I mean, you gotta keep this going.
Hank makes a good point. You do bring up Tiger, and yes, there has been a Tiger effect to a certain extent.
Absolutely.
But this is just as much about, and this is why I brought it up, on a show like the Daily Wrap, we don't talk sports that often, that this is about real estate as well. Yeah. And there are a lot, I live in Hudson County my entire life. Let me tell you about Hudson County, everybody. Anytime I wanted to go play golf, I had to drive an hour just to get to a golf course because it was too urban. Well, I know now there's two in Bayonne.
Should have grown up in my hometown.
Or
Everywhere
Jersey
was
City.
a golf course.
Yeah. Right.
Great course in Jersey City.
Yeah, I know. They built it on a landfill, believe it or not. I wrote about that for the New York Times way back when. And now I finally move out to another place in New Jersey that's suburbs. And I have 1 block away from me a golf course. And the minute I get there, now they're closing. Why? Because the real estate, there's so much of it that they're saying, you know what, for the dues we get, we're barely breaking even, or we could sell this for, they sold it for tens of millions of dollars. And that's why that number is amazing. 157 courses closed, only 14 open.
It's a cycle.
I think that's worse than cycle. I don't know about that. Anyway, when we come back, it's time for Yay or Nay. This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's time for Yay or Nay. First up, the lead character on the hit TV show Homeland, played by actress Claire Danes, will soon be leaving the CIA. I was about to say FBI, but of course CIA. In the new season, and the agency is not only aware of it, they're quite pleased about the development, tweeting, "Good riddance, Carrie Mathison," from the CIA's official Twitter account earlier today in response to an article by the New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd, who cannot wait for the character's departure. Probably Maureen, she probably more felt that or wanted to write demise, but didn't want to go too far with it. In her column, Dowd argues that real-life female CIA officers are fed up with their TV counterparts who are often portrayed one-dimensionally. Good riddance, Crazy Carrie. Yay or nay, Heather Hansen?
Maureen needs to calm down a little bit. It's just television. It's entertainment. There's a lot of one-dimensional lawyers out there too. It's fine.
Here's the thing I have and I know it's not my turn, but if you watch that show, Homeland, she is anything but one-dimensional.
Yeah,
She's
exactly.
certifiable. There's 9 dimensions to Carrie Mathison.
Right. She's my favorite psychotic. I mean, you know.
She's your favorite?
Yeah. And then favorite psychotic. You
I
can do the
thought
whole
that
show.
was their
My
beef.
favorite psychotic. You never bouncing off the walls, no
Right.
medication. You know.
So a nay for Hank?
I thought that was their beef, is that she was crazy.
Right.
But I'm with Heather on this one. You know, it's TV. It's not real.
It's unpredictable. No, I couldn't agree more. So I am a good riddance to Crazy Carrie. Well, she's not going anywhere. She's
Right.
just going to have a different occupation.
Right.
So I guess as a CIA agent.
And I suspect she'll still be spying. It's just my guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Double agent.
Yeah. So to be continued. Anyway, Las Vegas resident John Noble blamed his depression and eventual suicide on a Vegas resort that awarded him free meals from their buffet for life, but later banned him from the property, for harassing some female employees. The 53-year-old wrote in his suicide note, and this is a quote, "Today I end my life due to the M Resort Spa and Casino and its employees," end quote. I've stayed at the end, people. The food is tremendous. I don't want to laugh over somebody's suicide, but I mean, the fact that he got taken off the all-you-can-eat and then decided to end his life, probably there were other issues as well, but is it really worth taking your own life over losing an all-you-can-eat buffet?
Well, nothing's worth taking your life over, and I'm not going to make fun of it either. I mean, you see the obvious jokes, but it's very sad. I'm sorry for this guy, and what can you say?
Heather?
Yeah, I mean, he clearly had a lot of other things going on and felt that this was maybe the straw that broke the camel's back. It's too bad.
It's interesting, though, that was the suicide note. That
Yeah.
it was just those lines, and then that was it.
He obviously was not in a clear frame of mind.
There's so much you can do with this from a funny perspective
Yeah,
that would
but
be
you can't.
tasteless, but I don't want to be tasteless, so I'm not going to do it, but it's an awful thing.
Agreed. Okay, let's move on. A pro-Hillary Clinton super PAC, Ready for Hillary, is, well, ready for Hillary to throw her hat into the 2016 presidential race, even if Mrs. Clinton is not. Yeah, right. The super PAC is now selling custom whiskey glasses for Rick, mason jars, and champagne glasses at 50% off already. Wow, just negotiate yourself against yourself right off the bat. With Ready for Hillary etched into them, asking supporters if they're ready to partay. Also included, and this is hilarious, going back to our conversation earlier, smartphone covers, which includes one cover that shows the former Secretary of State on one of her 23 devices. Two-part question. Is this super PAC a wee bit presumptuous with this merchandise? And should it really be reminding anyone of Hillary using a smartphone? Rick Unger.
Well, look, all I really care about is that they have cat collars. It has nothing to do with me because I'm completely non-biased. But my cat purchased a Cats for Obama and wears that collar. And from what he's told me, he's probably going to be supporting Hillary, so he's going to want a Hillary for president.
Would
collar.
cats be for Obama, though, for the fact that he has dogs?
You
only
have
at
to
the White
take
House?
this on with my cat. You know, my cat thinks on his own.
Are you
Obviously, he was able to get over the dog prejudice and vote for the president.
And he was all for wearing an Obama collar.
He still does, and he still has it on.
I think we should get Rick a Hillary cup for his table here.
No, I'm unbiased.
Listen, I think that a lot of this, any sales, will have to do with just the fact that it's a woman running. A lot of people are ready for a woman to run and will like to have the phone cover and so forth. But I do think it's a little bit, I know you say it's no big deal that she breaks the rules and she's doing the emails, but clearly she thinks so and she wants to sell products that show it.
I have a whole other different feeling about this. Products. I mean, it's all very nice and good. What we're talking about is, let's see, we have lunatics in the Middle East and Iran who want to blow up the United States. We have chaos in Latin America because there's no policy. We have chaos in the Caribbean, chaos in Europe, Putin running around, and this is the best we can do?
Yeah, but this is the part where we're supposed to be having fun.
Well, I'm really having fun with all that.
Not
I cannot
talking
wait
about
for
that.
Putin to kill all those people in Ukraine. I'm very excited about it.
Now, are you saying the best we can do in terms of the show, in terms of topics?
No, I'm not talking. No, the show I would never criticize.
Okay, because
I'm
we're at the
talking
fun
about-
F block.
Because he
No,
wants
no,
to
no.
come on again.
No,
yeah.
no, no, no,
No,
no. That's
it
not the
advises
reason.
her.
Is that the best she can do? Is that the best is that the best we can do in presidential campaigns right now?
On. No, I mean it's a part of a campaign. Let's not get carried away.
No,
every
listen,
campaign.
I've been on 700 of them.
I know
Let me
you
tell
have.
you something.
And every campaign sells merchandise to fund their campaigns
not
these
exactly.
days. Well, they do these days. Tell me one that doesn't.
You mentioned before
There
Heather,
isn't one.
that this is all about a woman president checking off a box. How would a Carly Fiorina merchandise sale go?
She wouldn't do it though.
Yes, she
would.
would.
I don't know. I don't think
Yes,
she would.
would.
We got to end it there.
You can
Hey,
buy
panel,
flip-flops on Rand
great
Paul.
show tonight. We got to go. I'm Joe Concha reminding you, help control the pet population. Have your pet spayed and neutered. Good night, everybody.